if I would start by thanking, of course, all of us, all of you coming here, the ambassador for initiating this idea to speak here, for Institute to agreeing to host this meeting. Indeed, this meeting is also a combination of my visits to Dublin to speak with colleagues on the two actually important issues which would relate our two countries for now onwards. 1st January, Lithuania will start to lead OSCE, then Ireland will take lead, actually afterwards Ukraine. But also there is another even more important from the sort of from our perspective issue which relates to Lithuania and Ireland, our trio presidency. Beginning of 2013, Ireland, Lithuania and Greece. And also, so in a way, good experience which we hoped will be acquired during our trio work in the OSCE would then be transformed at least in the CFSP part of our EU presidency. In my understanding, in both cases, not speaking about EU presidency, in both cases for OSCE, this will be first time for both Lithuania and Ireland to lead OSCE. In the EU case, we're different. Ireland will be probably 6th time EU presidency. I would definitely, if you, with your permission, I would share some initial thoughts on where we stand, how we assess Astana summit. This is nothing probably to do with the formal Lithuania's yet position on Astana, because only a few days after Astana it will be very difficult to come with a very final and sort of analysis on what happens and what we expect then from Lithuania. Also, formally, Lithuania's formal program of OSCE will be presented 13th of January when Minister Ažubalis will address the Permanent Council in Vienna. So this is, I don't want to prejudge what minister will speak in Vienna. So what is the source, what I would present to you is original source, how Lithuania sees the process. I probably will start with a notion that for us, the very idea that Lithuania will lead OSCE is something striking. And this is probably confirmation that the world is changing and changing very fast and substantially. This year is a remarkable year for Lithuania because we celebrated, and we still celebrate, 20 years anniversary of restoration of Lithuania's independence. 11th of March 1990, Lithuania declared the restoration of independence. So you can imagine that 20 years ago, CSE, this was the previous name of OSCE, was the first Lithuania was knocking into the door. Newly reestablished from our legal point of view country, still part of the Soviet Union, still country lacking official recognition from the world, was started to knock at the door. And remarkably for us, as I was saying, that when head of states and governments of CSE gathered in Paris, Lithuania's delegates simply were thrown. There were some attempts by our Nordic countries to let us in, but there was niet. And this is again remarkable that after 20 years, Lithuania will chair the same organization, with of course different name, OSCE. Our slogan during the anniversary, when we celebrated this 20 years of restoration, is "In freedom we believe." In freedom we believe, and this phrase is also important sort of in our forthcoming OSCE presidency. This is also to declare to the world or to make sure to the world that we believe in freedom. Freedom to create, freedom to think, freedom to move, freedom to express ourselves, and take decision on our own life and our own security. I would divide then my presentation in two parts. One, as I was promising, few thoughts on Astana. In approaching Astana, we put sort of slightly what we would expect from Astana. One issue was clear that we were expecting that Astana summit will come with with an action plan and define benchmarks and timelines. Because we thought that although the Corfu process is moving well, but there is sort of fatigue already in Vienna. I mean, you can make one more or two ambassadors retreat, one more seminar, but this process should be more clearly defined where OSCE is heading as far as the discussion on European security architecture. Also, in our understanding, the best outcome of summit were to define tangible progress towards, first, settlement of protracted conflicts, second, progress on settlement of conflict in Georgia in particular, enhancement of dialogue on energy and cybersecurity, strengthening OSCE capabilities in handling the conflict cycle, and follow-up on recommendations in the human dimension. So, of course, I, again, don't want to bring you the notion that Lithuania were naive, but I think as all future chair, we understand the limits and the possibilities chairmanship is bringing to us. Of course, we thought that in expectation to the summit, that the summit would provide a strong impulse to renewal of the renewal of the organization and the new impetus for more effective performance. So, in a way, we are positive on Astana, even if there is no action plan, not all our expectations have reached. We're glad that in Astana, the OSCE countries have agreed on a common roadmap for the future. And that this roadmap definitely would positively reflect the balance among all three OSCE dimensions and maintain our goal to rebuild trust and confidence in order to strengthen security in Europe. More specifically, I think when we consider what was the major, if I would put in this way, failure, although I said there is no failure, these decisions are good in Astana, but failure to achieve, to agree on the action plan, definitely one first thought coming to our mind that this summit was not mature enough. The summit was not based on the internal dynamic of the organization, because these decisions were not based on sort of internal process which would lead to some substantial conclusions, and this was probably one of the reasons of failure to agree on the action plan. On the other side, to be more positive, I think the biggest achievements of summit that this was again venue to reconfirm and send signal to the world of the OSCE principles, norms, and commitments. Some of them commitments are not implemented. Some of them still deserve additional efforts, but to reconfirm, and with the presence of more than 40 head of states and governments in Astana, that these are still our values, I think was okay. So this is without doubt the biggest achievements. From other side, this text of declaration leaves still a lot of room for interpretation from both sides. One side, I won't quote the country, might say, I mean, look, there is no Istanbul commitments. Forget about Istanbul. I mean, because there is not clear. Other side, and this side would be probably right, to say that, contrary, there is still desire of OSCE countries to work on the protracted conflict. Although we fail to name which conflicts we particularly take into account. But there is, if you read para 7 of the document, it is specifically that the EU country, OSCE countries, very strong on protracted conflict. Again, declaration is. And if again we would list the positive side of the declaration. Of course, if you would read para 6 of the document, you would find striking good language of human dimension. If our very sort of brief comparison with the previous documents of the OSCE, we see that so far is the strongest language on HD, human dimension. We also find quite useful and the forthcoming language on arms control. Vienna document, even CFE is, okay, that is marked with a problematic angle that is not yet implemented, but it's okay that EU OSCE countries agreed to put this in the very specific language. If to name several more important elements from our angle, para 4 speaks about the need to work towards strengthening the OSCE's effectiveness and efficiency. This again was in the year in Vienna and in various seminars and meetings that the current OSCE mechanisms are not sufficiently working for the crisis. Para 7 speaks about the need to enhance energy security dialogue, which I think is again very remarkable that EU OSCE is contributing efforts to work on this area. Para 10 efforts to promote our relation with a stable in order to achieve stable democratic development and Afghanistan. Again, first time in the declaration very clearly identified our interest to see OSCE engagement for Afghanistan. But to finalize on the declaration, I think the biggest achievements of the declaration is that despite all disagreements and despite the failure, which I mentioned, this to agree on the action plan, OSCE states agreed to move forward towards security community and on concrete action plan. And this is, I think, this is the biggest achievement of the declaration. As I mentioned, I mean, this what we call core process is already making some fatigue in Vienna. So this is the biggest challenge for Lithuania, and not only for Lithuania, for the forthcoming chair, Ireland, and hopefully for Ukraine, to create a good synergy of our countries and to lead organization in providing action plan, hopefully agreed in Vilnius, if not in the future. So from 2011 and beyond, we should work at putting EU initiative into practice. And this is, of course, will be the biggest, as I mentioned, the challenge of our chairmanship. From other side, it is really, we feel privileged to have the opportunity to lead the organization and at this time and look forward to 4 challenging years. I think important element, which this is why I think was also part of efforts of our yesterday's talks devoted with our Irish colleagues, is continuity of task. I think in this regard, close cooperation among the countries sharing the EU chairmanship is detrimental here. We, 2 of our countries coming, Lithuania and Ireland, we are EU members. Definitely, we should bring also EU countries alongside on board to support our biggest challenge to agree on the action plan. So far, if to say a few words on our relation with the current chairman office, Kazakhstan, we have really enjoyed fruitful cooperation with our colleagues, and of course we probably would like to transmit this good notion also to our Irish colleague. Networking and close consultations with former and current and coming OSCE chair safeguards better follow-up of certain activities and ensures better implementation of existing commitments. For example, we initiated several years ago a joint training program between Lithuania and the current chair diplomats. This summer we had similar exercise with our Irish colleague. So the Lithuanian Irish diplomats were trained in Vienna together. We might consider to create more synergy. Again, one good example, which is Lithuanian diplomat is special envoy of the chairman in office for transport issue. So he speaks on behalf of Minister Saudarbayev. Now, because I want to still leave time for the exchange of views, debates, questions, I would underline several emerging priorities from what we see apart from the big job to get along with the action plan. Definitely seen from our perspective, protracted conflict still should remain on top of our priority. The conflict in Georgia in 2008 and the crisis this year in Kyrgyzstan demonstrated how fragile the situation and how serious consequences might occur. So the lessons learned, I think, is very clear. We must strengthen OSCE presence in problematic areas and involvement in settling those conflicts. In case of Georgia, I think our vision is very clear. We need to keep the Geneva process alive. This is the only channel which keeps this conflict still on our agenda. Without doubts, we should be more creative to think of the possibilities for OSCE presence in Georgia. This, I think, this still remains on top of our agenda. Confidence building, important area where we need to put our efforts. We also will further work closely with our partners to elaborate the confidence building process in Transnistria and the real economic reintegration of Moldova. Here, of course, the formalization of the 5+2 is on top of our agenda. In case of Nagorno-Karabakh, the Minsk group will remain the engine for driving a negotiated political settlement in Nagorno-Karabakh. So I believe that the OSCE can play its role, in particular through the promotion of understanding and tolerance between the societies which are the parties to the conflict. I was mentioning Afghanistan, and we believe that the threats emanating from Afghanistan, drugs, extremism, terrorism, undermine both the security of the bordering states and of the OSCE region in general. Kazakhstan went on extra mile to strengthen the engagement between the OSCE and Afghanistan. And the efforts will fall short, however, unless the OSCE participating countries provide the necessary update to the Madrid decision 2007. We see strong engagements in sub-regional cooperation as for the next year, and this is one of the priority of Lithuania's direction 2011. I think it has been a huge success, contributing to mutually reinforcing confidence, openness, and trust. We can encourage further bilateral or regional initiative aimed at developing good neighborhood relations and inter-regional cooperation. We are considering next year, under the aegis of the OSCE, bringing to one table various regional and sub-regional organizations to discuss together the added value that they can bring to the OSCE European security. I mentioned energy security, and this is, I think, still the complex issue, directly related to the climate change, environment, security, sustainable economic development. So the consolidated efforts and the solution are needed to cope with these challenges. If to use our example, the Baltic countries for the long time have been structurally dependent on the imported energy. Therefore, we understand the necessity to jointly develop common principles in the field of security. Here, of course, OSCE might bring the huge expertise of the confidence building within this area. Human rights and fundamental freedoms is among priority area for Lithuania's chairmanship, and where we are going to focus our attention in 2011. Here, of course, and this was also part of our talk yesterday, we would consider more close cooperation with our colleagues in Dublin. For example, freedom of media, and this will probably be one of the top priority in this respect. Responsible media professionals exercise high pluralistic standards and play a key role in taking a critical approach towards the government and politicians. Unfortunately, we see many examples when journalists do not feel safe while performing their functions, that they are threatened, imprisoned, when they even risk their lives. Governments have to do more to protect their journalists. We also have to ensure that the new media, as well as, for example, internet, as well as freedom of expression and other fundamental human freedoms, are properly guarded, especially for those who are the voice and conscience of our societies. During our chairmanship, promotion of independent human rights institutions and tolerance in education will be as well among the top of our program. Lithuania has, for example, a good experience in developing Holocaust research and education. We need further develop of tolerance education, curriculum, improvement of school environment, strengthening the role of civic society in tolerance education. I would probably stop here and just say that of course we understand and chairing the OSCE is truly ambitious task, especially for the states of our size and power. Chairing country definitely not capable to achieve chairmanship goals by its own. Therefore, we are looking forward to the close cooperation and mutual support with all our partners. I probably stop here and would be more than eager to answer questions or listen to critical remarks. Thank you.